I'm making it with a mushroom cream sauce. So to get there, I've got these beautiful mushrooms, I've got shallots, I've got some of that great local garlic we talked about a second ago, heavy whipping cream, cognac, because you got to have cognac to make a good cognac cream sauce. And just a few minutes ago at the store, I found Land O'Lakes has this extra creamy, they're calling it European style butter. So we're going to find out if that's any good or not, if it's worth the extra money. All right, so I'm going to start prepping these mushrooms. I'm going to do a duxelle of mushrooms, which is the French way of saying we slice it up into little cubes. So I'm going to chop up into little cubes the mushrooms. I'm going to dice up the shallots, mince up some garlic. Then we'll catch up after that and start hitting the cast iron. All right, let's do this. Hanger steak, pan-seared with a mushroom cognac cream sauce, guaranteed to please even the most discerning palates in your life. So I'm going to start by, well, first here's my mise en place. Mise en place is that fancy French term that simply means you've got everything chopped up, diced up, minced up, and pulled out and ready to go into the pan, so that when you start cooking, you've got everything right there where you need it, when you need it. And trust me, guys, that's absolutely critical. You want to have everything right there for yourself. So when you're going to do this, make sure you've got everything all set up so that when you start cooking, you're ready to go. All right, so I got this, what will hopefully be really tasty butter that we found today, this extra creamy Land O'Lakes. I'm going to put in a couple of tablespoons of that to start with. The very first thing we're going to want to do over medium-low heat is saute up the shallots. If you haven't worked with shallots before, it's an onion. But what's different between a shallot and like a yellow onion, they have a much more, I don't know, it's a refined flavor. It's a more subtle kind of a flavor. It gets across the idea of onion without being really aggressive or assertive about it. So once the butter stops foaming, you're going to want to go ahead and add this in. And that's it. Now what we're going to do is just saute this a little bit, get the shallots a little translucent, a little bit soft, and then we'll be ready to add some garlic. All right, so they're getting to that nice translucent point that I want them. You don't want to get them brown yet. Don't brown your onions. You just want them a little on the soft side. That's why we say translucent. All right, now I've got my garlic. I've minced up, well, really chopped up. We'll call it 3, maybe 4 cloves of garlic here. I like garlic, so I'm using more than you probably would want to at home, unless you're like me and you love garlic. It's about 3 good-sized cloves. Go and scoop them in. Now you just stir it around. You know what? I'm going to put a little more butter in there because I'm seeing some of the shallots sticking a little bit to the pan. I don't want that. So a little more butter. Move that around in there. I'm still working on medium-low heat. I tweak it a little bit here and there just to keep it at that point where everything's getting nice and soft and a little bit cooked through without actually turning brown. My God, whatever you do not let your garlic turn brown or black. Burnt garlic will kill your dish. Trust me on that. All right, that's looking real good. It's cooking down a little bit, getting some a little bit of nice color, but not brown yet. Looking good, smelling beautiful. And that's one of the best parts about cooking at home, filling the house with that amazing smell that gets everybody around you salivating and wanting dinner to come even more quickly. Okay, so now we're ready to add the mushrooms. So I'm using just the cremini mushrooms, the little button mushrooms you can get at the grocery store, the brown ones. Sometimes they call them baby bellas. I chopped them up into a small chop. Add those in. Do you guys have a favorite wooden spoon? I've got this one spoon that I love, that I use for everything. It's just the perfect size and weight. Love this spoon. All right, now I've got my mushrooms added. The reason we added the mushrooms last, they're going to exude water once they get about halfway through the cooking process. So that water is going to moisten the shallot and the garlic that's already in there, and we want that water to evaporate off. So I'm going to let these mushrooms cook down a bit, get rid of that water, and then I'll get back to you. It's time to add some of the beef broth. So I'm using bone broth from College Inn, good stuff. You know, you're going to have to eyeball this, I'm afraid, for yourself. I'm going to use, we'll call this nearly 2 cups, cup and a half, 2 cups of broth. I'm going to turn the heat up to a full medium so it starts to boil. And now that's going to pull out all those flavors of the mushrooms and the shallots and the garlic. And the broth is going to reduce down. And whenever the liquid reduces down, it gets concentrated. So all those flavors get beautifully concentrated and really focused. So that's going to happen here for, it'll take about 10 minutes. 5 to 10 minutes for that to happen. And I add some fresh thyme in there as well. I'm not adding salt and pepper yet. I'm going to wait till the end to season it so I get it exactly where I want it. So little fresh thyme. I got the bone broth in there, beef in this case. And now we're just going to let it simmer 5 to 10 minutes. Let it reduce down by about half this volume. All right, guys. You can see the consistency here. It's all reduced real nicely. Look how deep brown that color is. It's amazing. And my God, the smell right now, the thyme and the beef. All right, between you and I added a little bit of red wine in there a couple minutes ago. So I did add, we'll call it a 1/4 cup of just a good dry red wine. I let that reduce down. That's important. Whenever you're adding the liquids, cook them down a little bit to concentrate the flavors. And since we're adding cream, if there's any alcohol in there from either the cognac or the wine, it's going to curdle the cream. You don't want that. So let it cook down, which I have. Now we're ready to add the cream. So I've got just regular heavy whipping cream. I've turned the heat down to low right now. Just pouring it right in. There's one. And because in this house we love our cognac cream sauce, I am adding a bit that I had left over from another container. So we're looking at about a little bit less than a pint here. Call it 3/4 of a pint. Now, again, you're going to get tired of hearing me say this, but I'm going to let this cook down. We're going to let it reduce. As it does, it's going to start to thicken a bit. I don't like to add thickeners like flour or roux if I don't have to. We'll just let it do it naturally. So I'm going to crank the heat back up to a medium low. Let that cook down, and we should be good to go. All right, guys, now we come to the fun part. But in this case, fun also means incredibly dangerous. What I'm about to do is something you've got to be really, really, really careful with. I'm going to add the cognac, which has a high alcohol percentage, and then we're going to set fire to it and light this thing up to burn off all that alcohol. So all you have left is the actual flavor of the cognac, which is what we want. Now I'm using a cast iron skillet, as I do for almost everything I cook. It retains heat, so the pan is really, really hot. So as soon as I hit the pan with this cognac, it's going to be ready to flame up. So make sure you're protecting your hand, make sure you're protecting your stove, and be very careful with this part, all right? Here we go. I'm using a pretty fair amount of cognac. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. Isn't that beautiful? Really concentrates those flavors of the cognac, which is what you want, while burning off all the alcohol that's in there. Oh yeah, this is the fun part.